I've played a lot of MMO games on this channel, and we've been on some adventures together, haven't we? Through virtual worlds, discovering some hidden gems, piles of copy-paste boredom, and some far too detailed satires. But there's one type of game we don't find all that often. The result of madness. The kind of game that gives you a sense of unease while playing. The distinct, overwhelming gut feeling that you've discovered something cursed, something wrong. The type of cursed media that you'd watch a creepy YouTube video about at 2 AM, and then the author swears the game infected the rest of the games on their computer. The kind of game that you can't forget, but not always for the right reasons. Animyst is that game. So let's dive into this accursed, maddening game, become a friend of the droughts, and try to collect the Book of Lore. Strap in, because it's about to get weird. Welcome, I'm Josh Hayes, and this is Worst MMO Ever, a show where I play every MMO game I can find in a journey to find the worst. Drop a like on the vid or sub to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future notifications, and as usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel alive. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. There are very few games which leave me lying awake at night, constantly asking myself, why? What the hell did I just play? Why did I play it for so long? Am I the same man I was before playing it? Has Animyst taken a part of me to keep for itself? Or am I now carrying a part of it everywhere, a hair-thin slither of unreality lodged in my brain for the rest of time? Am I different? Who made this? Why did you make it? What inspired almost every baffling choice in this impossible journey? What eldritch god demanded tribute in the form of a video game, and did they look at this and think, you know what, that's a bit too much? Basically, Animyst is incredibly strange, disturbingly awkward, and impossibly hard, and yet for some reason has a 79% positive review score on Steam. That's 1% higher than The Elder Scrolls Online. What the hell is Animyst? Let's find out. From the Steam pics alone, you can tell we're in for a good time. Limited, repetitive textures, open, empty landscapes stretching into nothingness, utilitarian AI, oddly and disturbingly detailed flesh and gore. I'm getting very new developer who just bought Unity and is determined to make an MMO type vibes, because this developer hasn't made, apparently, anything else. I'm also getting flashbacks to Bloodlines of Prima, which was another maddening dive into one man's attempt to build an MMO. First off, graphical choice. You've got rock bottom, laptop, good, better, or great, and then a list of controls. Now, nothing seems too complex, so we launch the game, and the menu is a severed corpse staked to a standing brick monolith with horns sprouting from its eyeless skull. Okay, this is already feeling cursed. If I die after this video releases, blame this game. Choose play and you start the game dead. You have no memories of your past life and are simply a wandering shell drifting through the endless lands of the drought. In fact, let's just read the intro text. You lived a life that ended tens of thousands of years ago. You rise once again with a mind free of any memories or responsibilities of the past. Do you wake filled by the love you felt from family and friends? Or are you guided by rage and vengeance for those who did you wrong in your mortal life? As your soul settles into its vessel, you hear a faint whisper in your waking mind. Young one, welcome back from your eternal sleep. I gave you life with my magic, and now I lie here weak and dying. I feel I will perish soon. Please, find me in the town of sympathy, the birthplace of us all. So it's all very deep and serious, with themes of personal projection of meaning into your own avatar. It's setting up the theme of make your own fun very early. Fantastic. And now you pick your faction. You can spawn as a friend or a cursed one. Friends are skeletons and have a pretty cool backstory. All friends were killed together in a mass execution event tens of thousands of years ago, and now the skeletal bodies of friends are made of random bones from the mass grave. So you're not who you were in life. And cursed ones are the fleshier, gooier version of the two factions, possessing half a face, some muscle, and a few flaps of skin. Cursed ones were wealthy enough in life to be mostly embalmed. Faction choice doesn't really seem to matter too much. They both play identically, and when you die, and you will, you can switch and freely respawn as the other, but you can only gain levels in one faction at a time. The world is broadly divided into East and West, with friends owning the West and cursed ones owning the East, so I'll start as a friend. You spawn in a bone pit in the tiny town of Actually, this place doesn't have a name, it's just a tutorial place. It's not even on the map. The entire game is first person, and the mouse moves way too slowly. Thankfully, mouse sensitivity is one of the few options you do have. So there's an NPC. We walk up and, oh god, what the hell? Oh right, okay, hang on. Just take a step back. Prepare yourself for this. Every NPC in Animyst is voiced, but they are voiced with a text-to-speech program. An incredibly bad, awkward text-to-speech program. Now, I played this game for 6 hours. I listened to hundreds of NPCs to see if they are all this bad. They are. NPCs start talking the moment you look at them, and this is what it sounds like. Now, I had to listen to this, so you do too.
Hello, newcomer. Are you excited to be alive again? Tell happy others like you make it from hell eternal thunder. Why I don't think any of us really understand more truly or believe the same story. Welcome to the Cincinnati Road. It is the birthplace of all who wake in this fine desert. Please store your items here with me, with your luck. Some orient will clear you a new one the second you leave. Those orient have no class quotation banker tab.
You'll notice they even say tab at the end, meaning either the entire script has been broken down into blocks and then fed into the AI text generator with tab included, as in they haven't just used tab as a go to the next bit of text instruction, which seems strange to me because surely you just have a text system that adds the tab instruction to the end of a block of text once that text has filled up the text box. You wouldn't need to actually hard write tab into every paragraph you add. Or the system is reading what it sees on the screen, which is very weird. This skeleton then, I think, asks me out on the most direct date I've ever had.
Sure, we exchange bodily fluids.
Unfortunately, this speech also continues when you access a banker or use a shop, because you have to be looking at the NPC to interact with them, and opening up the NPC's function does not disable the speech, so you cannot escape this. So movement, WASD to move, space to jump, left click to activate your currently selected item. Items are stored on the hotbar at the bottom of the screen. You can scroll through the hotbar with the mouse wheel because there's no zoom. Right click, slaps. I'm serious, just right click and you just slap with whatever's in your offhand. To the bottom you've got a red health bar and a blue stamina bar. You'll also see these two arrows, a red one saying cast and a black one saying light attack or jump. This shows how much stamina casting your currently selected ability or jumping will use up. But note that it won't take your stamina down to that point, it shows the amount between the left of the bar and the arrow that will be used up, despite the fact the bar drains from the right. So what kind of things are we fighting? Well, these kind. A horrific amalgamation of a skinned chicken, giant crow's skull, and actual regular human feet and hands, which moves around in a jerky, unpredictable way. I've been playing 10 minutes and already I know we're in for something special. So along with moving, jumping and killing chicken-human hybrid affronts to both gods and man, Animyst is mostly about collecting things like natural resources or enemy innards and then building stuff like bases or structures in the overworld. So it's essentially Undead Rust with no players, or Mortal Online with no players. So I suppose just regular Mortal Online. But how do you find these resources? Well, you press V to activate resource mode. Now in resource mode, a few things happen. First, you can pretend you're at a rave. Secondly, you'll see pillars of light reaching all the way into the sky. These pillars mark resources, but they also mark the safe zones around cities where you can't be attacked, building zones in the open desert where you can place structures, some enemy spawn points, and the halfway barrier dividing east and west, friend and cursed land space. Playing with resource view on is somewhat helpful because it makes local plants easier to see, but be aware that it marks every single possible resource and area across the whole map and really shreds your CPU. Pressing F brings up the world map. Animyst only has a single server, so everyone is playing on this one landmass, and it's actually impressively big, and we start off to the north. You've got three main cities: Sympathy, which is the neutral friend and cursed space combined, the friend capital of Cathedral to the west, and the cursed stronghold of Perdition to the east. While you can indeed attack members of the other faction, including structures they've built, this isn't a worry because the game game has no players. This opening area is essentially what would happen if RuneScape's Tutorial Island spent a methed up weekend with David Cronenberg. I mean, look, this is the first face you see in the game. Look at this. I see this now when I close my eyes. Last night, my sleep paralysis demon ran away from this. So we leave the opening area and head to Sympathy. The vast majority of Animyst is just walking slowly through a barren, desolate landscape. About 80% of my playtime was just spent walking. We're then told to press tab and open the inventory. You have no visible stats or defense or speed, just a basic inventory, and you can click on mirror view to see yourself and rotate through 4 set angles. And while you can eventually equip armor, it doesn't seem to do anything. And even if it did, it would be hard to tell, because when the enemies attack you, you can't see how much damage they're doing because your health bar drains at such a sporadic rate. On the menu, you can also click Book of Bones. This is your text dump tutorial, plot, and mechanic primer all in one. It's an awfully laid out torrent of everything you should be doing, how to build structures, what the different tiers of building materials are, and roughly where to find them, and also why building matters. We also get taught that G opens the teleport menu, and then you need to remain holding G to keep this menu open and then teleport from there. Teleporting starts an animation which cannot be stopped, and if you hold Y, you can open the emote menu. Y for why are you playing this game? Here are some emotes. To perform an emote, you must keep holding Y, then press U for wave, I for intimidate, and O for ritual. There are other emotes, but they're locked to subscribers only. Oh yeah, the game has an optional sub, and cash shop items, we'll look at them later. The emotes don't seem to do anything, either to NPCs or enemies, they are purely for roleplay. The tab menu is also where you can craft stuff from, but this is never explained, so we'll just stumble upon it later. If you don't have a weapon or ability equipped, left click will just throw a bone. As we venture towards Sympathy, it changes from night to day because of course there's a day and night cycle, but this does have a slight purpose. During the day, you cannot hurt your own faction, which means at night, you can. If you thought having a spy from an enemy in your guild was bad in games with no friendly PvP, imagine trying to build anything in Animyst when your opponent can die, respawn on your team, wait for nighttime, and then grief you. Hold shift to sprint and this NPC says something which I fully agree with.
Please, I do not wish for company. Why has my beautiful slumber ended? Why this nightmarish purgatory?
Nightmarish purgatory. Couldn't have put it better myself, I feel you. Night seems to fall instantly, except it doesn't. This is just a graphical thing the game does sometimes. And this flame doesn't seem aligned to the torch, but that's okay, because you can just take the flame. This is actually a weapon, but I don't know that yet. Scattered around, you'll also find these bottles. Now, smashing them usually takes 3 hits of anything, whether it's your equipped ability or just slapping, and they always drop something. Every item seems to use the same red goopy graphic, and then you press E to take something or hold E to loot everything in a local area. But to do your local loot, you must still be aiming at least one lootable thing, and this is where I discover there is a significant lag on any interaction. Talking to an NPC, hitting stuff, picking stuff up, everything has an animation, then a 2-second lag, then things happen. So we pick up this giant stone and store it in our... I was going to say pocket, but we're a skeleton, I don't know, ribcage until later, and then learn about building your groundskeeper. The groundskeeper is this meditating neon skeleton looking thing, and it's how you stake your claim to a patch of land in the desert. And then you build around the groundskeeper to protect it because enemies and the opposite faction will attack it, and while the groundskeeper exists, you gain levels. I don't know if these levels even do anything, we'll try and find out later. You can't build a groundskeeper too close to an opposing throne, and then there are mechanics to attack other players, and this is an example of a complex system with at least a level of thought with no one to experience it, because getting to the fun bit, the raiding monuments, would take weeks and weeks of prep, which no one is going to do. While walking around, you've also got a compass, but it's done with this oddly textured 3D ring effect and only partly visible. It's functional, but doesn't fit with any other aesthetic. In fact, most of Animyst seems to be a random mash of creepy assets, with some UI elements sharing a brown and green color scheme, and others being placeholder buttons. But I do check the Instagram and find out that actually there was plans for the compass to be more complex, with inner rings showing direction to cities or your own groundskeeper. It's actually a shame they never put this in. Push through the barren world overseen by an angry sky and eventually reach Sympathy. Have a look around and find this shop. They only seem to sell flags which help your friends identify you, and I don't think I'll need this because I am the only player and have therefore proclaimed myself emperor, so all flags are now mine. And then the banker. Thankfully all banks are connected, so this system works fine. Unfortunately, there's no auto sort or search function. Not essential, but always a nice touch when games have that. We now get shown 3 portals
portals, one leading to the Friend capital of Cathedral, one to the Cursed main city, and one leading to the Caverns, which is a player versus monster zone that you can grind in for materials. I'll come back here when I have a weapon. And now we meet the Queen, the King, the person with a crown. They are dying. I'm not quite sure how to feel about this because we're all literally already dead, but they do give us the game's main and only quest. Find the 8 pages of the mythical book of lore scattered across the desert and return them here. You have no clue where any of these pages are. The desert is huge and deadly. Good luck finding them. This is basically the entire focus of the game now. Find 8 pages of a book. And you can't even Google the quest because Animyst is a real word, so that fills in the suggestions. And then the only Animyst MMO result is a first impressions vid from a few years back or a dead Instagram. Basically, no documentation exists in an easily accessible wiki or video guide form. So if you want to play this or find any of the pages, you're on your own. Oh, remember the embers that we took from the flame earlier? Well, they're an equipable ability, and if you equip it and select it, you now throw fire. The only way to know if something is equipable is when you cursor over it, it will have a damage stat. But you'll see that we also have a limited number of embers. Now, this is not an ammo count, because you can actually cast an ability an unlimited number of times, provided you have at least one of them. This count matters on death, because when you die in Animyst, you'll drop everything in your inventory, except equipable items. You'll only drop one of those. So if you have a stack of several, you won't lose access to your weapon. You also don't lose whatever you're wearing. Extreme noticeable lag whenever you break a pot, and as the pot breaks, it has an item falling out animation. But then that fell animation despawns and an actual item drops into place, so you get this double drop effect. In the center of Sympathy is a lush green pit. There's no fall damage from any height, so just jump on in, and this is a small safe place to collect basic crafting materials. Grab a load of reeds, head back up some pillars, jump over into the land, and just gaze into the distance. Now, the sheer scale of the open world is impressive, and the structures you can see in the distance, that's not a skybox. That is a structure. You can climb it. So I set off. Now, the long distance throw of the fireball is actually quite accurate, but you'll also notice, just like Bloodlines of Prima, enemies don't move smoothly. They move in this very jerky dash and wait motion. Now, someone told me this is likely the server sending packets of movement data to the player's client in the most inefficient way, but I don't know. If you have a reason, leave a comment. But there's also this strange thing with some later enemies. They don't move toward you in a straight line. They start in position A and they end in position B. Now, getting from A to B would be a straight line of movement, but instead of moving in a line toward the player, they move in a line almost directly vertical. They only move the distance that A to B would be, then they reset back to ground level, then move vertically again. I have no idea why this happens, but it does mean that when enemies chase you, they don't run across the floor to you, they run up into the sky and then teleport slightly closer. I find some strange sand circles in the desert. These are also equipable items, and I run further along and then die to a random, unseen enemy. So the safe cities are safe, the local areas are okay-ish, although chickens can do a minor amount of damage to you, but the deep desert, the place where the pages probably are, is incredibly unfairly tough, and you will get 1 or 2 hit. I only found about 4 enemy types in a full day of play. The weird, skinless chickens, strange rock dogs, which are pretty well balanced and can be killed quite easily, chittering imps, which are way too fast and kill you almost instantly, and a flaming demon hellspawn, which wasn't even worth trying to fight because this was a boss, and I just got melted as soon as I saw it. Enemies all seem to have the same attack, casting a green gaseous cloud around you, and they can stack, and if you stand in the cloud, you take constant damage. I respawn as a friend again, get sent to the main city, and read more of the Book of Bones. Maybe there are some hints in here. But no, there are only cryptic messages and spelling mistakes. But I do manage to equip the random sand orb I found, and it's a local AoE attack, which is actually very useful. And now I discover crafting. Open the tab menu, click crafting, and you can make spells, clothes, building materials, or special, which are materials needed by the other 3. Crafting is instant. You just need to have the raw materials on you shown in the list. Unfortunately, there's no wiki or cursor over tooltip, so you've got no idea where you actually need to get these. But I know that a groundskeeper needs fossils, blood, and mind. So with no outside help, let's hunt down these materials. Equipment is also in the crafting menu, so I might give myself a nice makeover later. I return to Sympathy, stick vision mode on, and get gathering, and while this mess of a laser show plays out, let's just have a read of some reviews. It's an interesting idea, but there just doesn't seem to be much fun to be had. According to Steam charts, almost nobody plays it, so the PvP element is pretty much out of the question. I played for a couple of hours and I'm pretty sure I was the only person who was ever online. The world is very large, but mostly empty, and by empty I mean literally empty landscape. The environmental design consists almost entirely of 2 types of ground and 1 type of rock, with the occasional grassy patch. Worse than that, the points of interest aren't interesting either. I couldn't find much to do in the game. It is a bit of a barren wasteland. I went into the desert to find enemies to fight and encountered some weird rock fire spider things that walked toward me, but then they funnily didn't do any damage when they were close to me, so I hit them to death. I walked around and gathered a bit of stuff for 30 minutes, but there was just nothing to do or fight. And where is the inventory for crafting? Weird. If you find something worthwhile to do in this game, be my guest. Animyst is a haunting, interesting, open-world, PvP-based, decide-your-own-fate kind of game. While one could compare the gameplay in some small way to Rust, and while the player base is a bit small and the game obviously needs some work, Animyst and its community are so much more than meets the eye at first. I am so excited to see where this game is in 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now. The PvP is insanely fun, the world is exciting, and the mysterious tombs and spells will keep you wondering at what evil lurks past the next sand dune or inside the next ritual. Quick note, this review was posted in 2019, so 2 years from now, the game died. Don't play for more than 5 hours or you will go insane IRL and you will be forced to join the devs' cult of death and despair. I was extremely bored one day and played this with a friend. We were the only 2 players at the time. After chatting and exploring for a bit, I hit him in the back of the head and killed him, thus becoming the official best Animyst player in the world. Was never a huge MMO fan, but something about this game captivates me for reasons I can't quite put my finger on. To be honest, the online world doesn't have many players at the moment, but I feel that's because this is a sort of diamond in the rough. If you like surrealism and dark fantasy, this game is totally worth the download. You run around as a skeleton and slap jars. I have no idea if this game used to be better, but the maximum peak player count ever was 14, and that was 5 years ago. The 24-hour peak was literally just me. With enough materials, I craft myself a nifty hat and some body armor, and with this I bank all of my items and go and take on the cavern. The cavern hunting grounds is literally just one big open cavern with 1 teleport entrance and 1 enemy type, the rock dogs. It's laggy as hell, and the only reason I can hit anything is because I'm using the AoE sand attack I found in the desert, so I don't have to aim. Enemies don't have health bars, so it's a guessing game when things die, so behold, combat. I played this game for 6 hours. It does not get better. So I run into the corner to try and hide, and I just run straight up the wall. Right, in Animyst, unless the wall is actually vertical, you can climb it, and even then you can climb it if you jump fast enough. Remember that friends, the skeletons, are a mix of bones, and my leg bones are clearly from Skyrim horses. I then discovered that not only can you climb up walls, you can just run to the very top of this cavern and leave through a gap. Now this doesn't seem to be a glitch or a bug, there is just a hole in the top that you can walk through. And this gets you outside the cavern, and now you're outside. The cavern map doesn't exist on the regular overworld, so there is nothing here. It's just a flat plain and an endless void. I look around for resources, but finding nothing, decide to just leap into the void and try and end it all. Unfortunately, you can teleport while falling, and back in the main city, I finally find where to get blood. The shop sells it. Well, it trades it for other materials. Stuff that I've actually got. Slight issue though. Interacting with any NPC is tab, and bringing up your own inventory is also tab, so trying to access your inventory while standing next to an NPC always activates them instead. So now I know where to get blood, but I still need to find fossils, so let's go fossil hunting. I discover the world's stiffest carpet, and then grab some combat abilities from smashing some more pots and leave once more into the wilds. I am still impressed by the sheer scale of the game, but yep, there it is, the quintessential player-built stairs monolith. Look, I understand that the idea of letting players build whatever they want in the open world sounds cool, but when you do that, you're guaranteeing you'll get 2 very specific types of structure: staircases and dicks. We saw this in Mortal Online, Life is Feudal, New Frontier, Shroud of the Avatar. Basically, if you let players build in a shared overworld, you're going to get staircases and penises. I do get attacked on the journey to the stairs, but spam click and somehow survive, and the ambient light is also really nice. The landscape has this alien distance feel to it. It feels like one of the alien planet sound stages from the original Star Trek. Repeated flowers, rocks, hills, all technically different, but all following almost identical rules. Climb to the very top of this player-made tower, and nothing. No page, no treasure, just a vantage point, really. And even then, there's nothing to actually vantage at. I even find another base nearby, and is this player-made? Who makes these? Why? Why do you make them? What drives someone to build a virtual bastion inside a dead world? A sentinel to effort spent and gone, both immortal and yet ephemeral, timeless and yet immediately irrelevant, all at the same time. And I like how that last sentence sounded really deep, but also applies to the giant dick sculptures. My map shows the gully nearby, so I head toward it. I've even found enough stuff to craft a mega frame, but can't place it down as I need a groundskeeper first. And en route to the gully, as usual, an unseen imp kills me in 2 hits. No way to avoid it. Great balancing, Animyst. Let's respawn as a cursed one this time. Once you've placed a groundskeeper on one side, you gain levels for that side, and to place another on the other side, you must destroy your first. You'll also notice that the strange spinning shape on the loading screen is a giant asterisk, and I've seen this shape before. On the map, it's the dome. So the dome is probably important. We'll head there soon. Respawning sends you back to the start, and this time I think, you know what, we're pretty far north. Let's just wander off the map. Turns out if you go further north, it's just a massive invisible wall, and then later on, an actual giant wall made of massive blocks. I run along here for 20 minutes and discover that the game world isn't actually aligned with the map. The map is very slightly twisted. So as you move in a straight line further along this wall, on the map, you actually move slightly south. So I run along this wall for about 20 minutes just to see what's there. I jump into the wall out of boredom and get stuck. Great. Fantastic. Can't even attack. Can't jump, can't sprint, can only flail around helplessly. And thankfully, again, teleporting still works even while stuck. Okay, I need 100 blood for this groundskeeper thing, and after an hour of grinding resources, I can afford 6. Right, I'll grind this later. For now, let's check out that dome thing. Honestly, the giant dome dominates the skyline, so it's obviously important. Maybe treasure, a boss, maybe one of the 8 pages the game is centered around. Let's find out. So we set off into the desert again, smash a pot, and die to some random electrical discharge. Animyst, listen, you've got a somewhat intriguing premise of find 8 pages of a book, and actually quite an impressive world due to the sheer scale and alien nature. Yes, it's barren and repetitive, but I still want to see what there is, because I am intrigued. What you don't have is a combat system capable of handling any combat. So please, when I'm trying to do the one thing that you seem built for, exploring, don't randomly kill me using the one thing you can't build, combat. This is a hallmark of self-indulgent long-term expectation design. The idea that, yeah, there's a great big game here, but it would take tens or hundreds of players working collectively for weeks or months to even see progress, and how a single lone soul is irrelevant. You must be part of the collective. And it sounds good on paper, because being part of an epic experience sounds cool, but the reality becomes the good parts of your game lock themselves behind a massive early community-focused grind, and the grind never happens because the community never exists, and the game never gets to show off what you envisioned it being because the players didn't work as hard as you think they should. Basically, don't promise a huge payoff for a huge amount of effort and then get saddened when the payoff is never reached. It's a real shame because exploring Animyst is actually quite fun, but dying in it is not fun. Finally, I arrive at the dome and find these strange purple rocks up the side. These are also equipable abilities and are actually an extremely good attack, the falling arc attack. I'll use it more later. But what about the dome itself? Okay, this thing is big. Intimidatingly big, like genuinely terrifyingly big. There's a moment in Tomb Raider 1, which I've reviewed on my second channel a while ago, where you're dropped into an underwater cavern and it's so big you can't see the walls, just the shadows of these looming statues in the distance. And this kind of design genuinely scares me because you feel so small. Scale is used to great effect here. But what is in the dome? Well, it turns out a fire demon. No pages, no items, no resources, just a boss I am nowhere near capable of beating, so I just die. And the trip to the dome was a fun bit of sightseeing, but I'm nowhere closer to my groundskeeper. So I equip the arc weapon I found, and then I discover where you find fossils. You craft them in the special menu. One fossil needs a megalith, a brickstone, one underbrush, and one remains, and I need 20 fossils. I also need 100 blood, and each blood costs 8 reeds or 10 ancient blood, so I need to do some serious gathering. Breaking pots seems to be the most effective way to get stone, and this also finds me a meteor staff. It's a snake head and drops a flaming rock from the sky. But while doing so, it also stops all the other ambient music and plays this super ominous low tone for the duration of the rock. Just have a listen. This disturbed me. With my new weapons, I return to the PVM grinding cavern. It's nighttime, so it would make sense there's less light inside this entirely enclosed cavern. The meteor staff can't lock on, and with the lag of the enemies, it's pretty much useless, although it does show off the really impressive lighting and physics engine as the meteor just rolls around. Unfortunately, there's no real weight to it. It bounces like that prop rock's shadow from the first Indiana Jones movie. I farm resources through enemy killing, pot smashing, and re-grabbing until I can make 20 fossils, and now for 100 bloods. No getting away from it, this is tedious. I power gather everything, and there's no quick way to do this. Remember the lag on every click? Resources aren't gathered when you click them. They're gathered when you've clicked them. The game has taken a nice long sip of tea, considered your proposal, then decided to gracefully gift you the resource, and sometimes you'll even hear the gathered sound effect, but the resource is still in the world. And after gathering everything in an area, everything takes a few minutes to respawn, so you're just waiting, or running off into the wild. Oh, once you've gathered a resource, that yellow beam doesn't go away, it stays there. The beams point to where the resources will spawn, even if they are currently spawned or not, so you can end up doubling back on yourself quite often. And all of these resources, remember, are shared on a single world. So imagine competing with other people to try and gather these. It took me over 3 hours to get the materials I needed on my own with no competition. But could you speed this up with money? Well, honestly, I don't know, because the Steam shop sells obol coins. What do these coins do? I don't know. It doesn't say. You can buy them and then you can just kind of have them. Congratulations, enjoy owning them. There's also a subscription, but why? If I ever meet someone subscribed to Animyst, I would genuinely be afraid of them. Gathering for so long has me using resource view, and the vertical lines all end up blending into one giant angry Netflix intro vibe, and it feels like I'm playing a developer version of the game. Developers watching this video, is this line effect more or less effort than just having arrows pointing to stuff? Find another weapon, Champion's Breath, a staff which drops 5 random fireballs down in front of me, and again using it overrides all sounds and plays its own weird ominous tone. 30 more minutes of pot smashing and I find the Pestilence staff. This one shoots bees. And that's when I notice an issue with all of the staffs, a graphical issue. Does it look like the staff is shaking to you? When standing still with any staff, the edges will gently vibrate, and there's no way to make that sound not dirty, so just go with me here. When you run with a staff, it vibrates vigorously. Stop laughing, this is a serious video. My working theory is the anti-aliasing program pounded 5 rum and cokes, decided to rebel, and now instead of anti-aliasing, it just aliases everything. And sometimes teleports just fail. No reason why, they just decide not to work. Finally, after almost 3 hours of nothing but gathering, I craft the Groundskeeper. I can finally begin my journey in this desolate land, and now to place it down. You can't build too close to a main city or to someone else's Groundskeeper, so I use line vision to find the giant ring around the city and leave it. Surely I can just build on the outskirts. Unfortunately, leaving means being attacked, and if I die, I'll drop the Groundskeeper, and I do not want to craft it again. But it turns out no, you can't build here either. Even outside the ring, don't know where the actual building locations are, they're just random. I end up needing to run all the way to this structure, which looks like another player-made fort, and then put my Groundskeeper here, even though there is already one here. Now I've also prepared some walls to defend it, so place the Groundskeeper down, and then I accidentally clip my wall all over my Groundskeeper. I don't know if this is bad. I mean, it's protected, I suppose. Right, what now? Ah yes, now is the traditional Animyst dying to unseen scavengers. Can't have you exploring or having too much fun. So we've placed a thing that will gain me levels, apparently. Let's try to find at least one page of lore. That's what I want to do before I stop. The map shows Green Hole to the south, so I set off, fight all the way there, and there is nothing here. It's empty. So I think, okay, if there's nothing on the map, how about off the map? And I run as far southwest as I can. And what I discover is the map and the in-game world are even further apart than I expected. It's almost as if the in-game world isn't a square. It's almost like a giant circle. Now, of course, there's nothing in the distance of the deserts except A spiraling staircase of ramps leading into the sky. Of all the random places I could have gone, I've wandered for hours and only come across about 3 things built by players. Why did I find this? How have I picked the one bit with a massive player-made structure? Unfortunately, I can't build here, so I can't complete the stairs or see the top. But the fact this exists is insane. I run along the southern wall for about 30 minutes and then die to scavengers. Again, fine, this time I'll respawn as cursed and I'll go and explore the forager's tomb. That's a tomb, it's got to have something interesting in it. Well, reaching the tomb is itself a task as I'm chased halfway across the map by so many rock dogs that the game actually slows down. And when I get there, nothing. Again, it's just another big empty room, someone else's groundskeeper. This map is 99% nothing and 1% death. I die repeatedly to many scavengers. I just cannot survive in the desert. The enemies are unbalanced and journeying anywhere takes too much time. So out of curiosity, I checked the Steam discussions, and that's where I find this. We travelled thousands of miles so that we were off the visible map and so far beyond it that one would have given up hope. We eventually got to the invisible border wall after an hour of sprinting and climbing. We then travelled east and came across a massive dirt wall that stretched forever. After overcoming it by placing large maps, we continued on east until we found the corner invisible wall. So far away from everything that the game was glitching out and everything was going to hell. We left a monument to our achievement in the southwest corner. Also, the dev said the map was donut-shaped, though our 2 hours of endlessly sprinting and climbing proved that otherwise. So hang on, was the monument that they placed the incomplete ramp that I found in the southwest corner? That Steam comment is 2 years old. Has the ramp survived the entire time? I needed to know, so I ran all the way back and yeah, turns out that is the only southwest monument. And then I decided there's got to be more. So I went as far west as I possibly could. The Beehive. And I saw something I don't think any of you will have seen before, even if you've played this game, because I don't think there's any footage of this anywhere on YouTube. I make it inside the Beehive, a massive tomb. I make it past all the small raiders. I dodge some poison, and then a huge tomb-wide sandstorm kicks up. I run around more, I have to sprint away from an army of small raiders until eventually I hear the noise of a horrific unseen enemy chittering and chanting at me, and then the screen explodes and I die. The text box says I was killed by a cursed diplomat. So I googled this, and it only brings up the Animyst Instagram page, and the last update was 148 weeks ago, and the Animyst website is a dead link and Google Images has nothing. Even searching the company who made it brings up nothing. This game is genuinely on the knife edge of becoming a completely forgotten project, and if, for whatever reason, you have an actual picture of the cursed diplomat enemy, please share it, because this whole game intrigues me. I feel like I'm looking at the result of someone's passionate obsession. They just didn't quite have the skill to realize what they actually wanted to make. There's lots of effort here, but it's so laggy, so overly big that you need to put in any amount of prep time just to die in seconds. I want to explore Animyst more, but it's almost as if Animyst doesn't want to be explored. It's actively fighting against a player diving into the depth of its cursed existence. It doesn't provide you enough information in-game to sustain itself, and there isn't enough information existing out of the game to create a wiki. I log out for the night, and when I return the next day, it seems that I'm now level 16. Not sure how, maybe the groundskeeper absorbed the magic. Do levels even matter? I have the same health and stamina. I do the same damage. I explore more. The desert at night is creepy. I find more bases, likely remnants of people building them years ago, and as usual, I die to scavengers again, and yet despite all of this, I keep on exploring. There is something undeniably darkly compelling about Animyst, the echoing tubular music, the flat open desert punctuated by impossibly massive structures, the laggy enemies phasing toward you with no movement, and the single focus of find the pages of a book in this unknown land. Animyst is an objectively badly designed game in many areas. The lag, the voiceovers, the inconsistent UI, but it's still oddly compelling to play. Find pages of a book is such a simple, understandable goal. Restore the history of this unknown world. Not even you know why you're here. And the recognizable but still alien architecture is strikingly memorable in a disturbing way. Animyst is undeniably bad, and yet even after I had enough footage to make this video, I kept wandering the desert looking for something which might not even exist. I suppose this is thematically accurate to the character I'm playing. Dry bones wandering for years to find a history of a time that never was. Animyst isn't a flawed gem because it's as far from any level of gem as a game could be, but it is a flawed message in a smashed bottle. The message just being a cryptic hint to find the answer. It might mean nothing, although it might mean something. Maybe the developer is laughing knowing that I'll never find any answers and they're amazed anyone has played longer than an hour, or maybe this is one of the most intriguing mysteries the internet has to offer. I don't know. I spend hours just wandering around. Mountains don't seem to have any kind of entrances. There are no tight caverns or hidden caves, just rolling masses of rock. I find a hidden player-made base to the far east, but I can't get in because it's locked. I even jump around to find a back entrance, and there isn't one. I follow the map to the mountaintop, only to discover the opposite, a crater filled with boulders, which were actually equipable abilities, and now I can throw boulders at enemies. I find a magical staff, which shoots bolts of energy super long range, and after a grueling climb and lots of running backwards, I actually managed to kill 2 scavengers. They drop the poison weapon that they've been using against me, but only one of them, so when I die, I will drop this. Animyst is a mystery to me, but it's just intriguing enough to remain interesting. Where are the pages? What killed me? What's the goal? Who made this? How long until this just ceases to exist? It's an insane experience, but I will always be annoyed that I never found a page. It straddles that fine line between pretentious, self-aware art house project and genuine burst of insanity not quite sure what to do with itself. After playing for a few days, I feel I've watched a classified tape or read half a page of an occult book. I'm different now, and I'm not sure if I like it. So to end the review, I'll award Animyst. You know what? No. We're not done here. We're not finished yet. I need a page, just one. This world has secrets, and my god, I am not leaving until I find at least one, so I keep going. And eventually, after hours, I wander into a distant tomb, and the cackling of a terribly powerful enemy fills the air, but my boulder has a knockback, and my energy staff has range and accuracy. And maybe those levels I've gained are doing something because I'm not losing health as fast, and it takes far too long, with far too many close calls. But I kill whatever this thing is, and it drops a weapon, an actual weapon, a hammer, a sword, some throwing knives, far more powerful and faster than any of the spells I've got. So armed and with a renewed sense of vigor, I push on into the desert well. I find more, I dodge, I heal, I start to survive. I find a healing crystal spell which drops an AoE healing crystal. I find the oasis. I travel to the extreme south and find the fledgling settlement of Kaddish with a new king and an expensive shop. And then I travel into the desert well, and eventually I find a doorway, an entrance. And inside, I find a skeleton propped up on the far wall and a page of the Book of Lore. So I grab the page. And there's a teleporter to the caverns, but I don't know if this is the same caverns that I know, so I ignore it and I teleport back to Sympathy manually. I hand the page in, and that's when I see, if you talk to the dying king with E, nothing happens, but if you interact with Tab once you have a page, the shop interface opens up. You trade the pages for the completed Book of Lore, and for the 8 pages each requested, it tells you where to find them. And if you complete the book, you unlock the ability to fly. And this, I am told, is needed because the final boss is in the sky. I even joined the Animyst Discord. I'm not holding out much hope because the last update was 3 years ago. I ask if anyone has ever completed the book, flown into the sky and killed the final boss, and surprisingly, I get a response from the game's developer. He says yes. A handful of people have. Another player, King Rabbit, even joins the game after seeing me and tells me the cavern teleport that I found in the well leads to a super powerful boss. In fact, every hidden cavern entrance, there's one at almost every named map location, takes you to a boss. So I return to the gully from earlier. I find the door I missed last time. I find another page of lore. I take the cavern teleport and I die to something otherworldly. But I was expecting it. I know what to expect now. I feel that Animyst is starting to reveal its secrets. Animyst may be a maddening, lonely, on some levels disturbing experience, but finishing it is not impossible, and somehow knowing this makes it so much worse. Finishing the Book of Lore needs some ultra-rare high-level crafting materials created in high-level forges that you can build at your base, and it would take me weeks to actually gather all the materials to craft these. I simply don't have the time. But someone does. One of you likely will. Someone watching right now, you'll probably join the esoteric elite, the elusive club of people who have finished a forgotten, cursed game. Someone do it, just for documentation. Someone finish Animyst. and show us what the Sky Boss looks like, before, inevitably, this game actually dies for good. So, to finally end the review, I will award Animyst.
Why has my beautiful slumber ended? Why this nightmarish purgatory?
Out of 10. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch and YouTube who keep the channel alive and allow me to make videos. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter and our Discord channel. And as always, have a great day.